Wow, what a day this is going to be. I'm fired up. I'm Henry T. We're on a podcast. Does anybody know what pod is? I still don't know. I just know it's Henry T's Comeback on television or on here. It's everywhere. People yelling at me at intersections. Henry T., I heard your show. I watched your show today. The recognition factor is enormous. It wasn't bad at 4, 7, and 13. A lot of recognition. I'm in a supermarket. Henry T. But now it's supermarket, church, down the street, on the street, whatever. These things work. Spread the word. Henry T. is trying to come back. And today I am fired up because I have a longtime friend in here. Great coach at Manzano High School. Went on to find his way to Fresno State. Wow, what a coach. And then found his way to the NBA. And as a scout, was a scout, maybe part-time now still, was with the Hornets and Michael Jordan. He and Jordan are tight. You know what I'm saying? What a career he's had. And he's a friend of mine. When he was at Manzano, leader of the Monarchs, vying for the state championship. One night when Henry T. was a referee, man, he was telling me all about my ancestry and everything, and I just had it up to here. So on a fast break down the floor, he's still in my ear, and I blew the whistle. I said, Coach, there you go, man. Technical foul on Jim Thrash, one of my favorite coaches of all time. I bet he doesn't even remember that. He had so many. Coach Thrash, it's great to see you.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Man, I love you like a brother. We've been so close for so many years. I respect everything you've done because you've always taken it all to the mountaintop. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been very blessed.
Amen. And then, check it out. Before all this success, he married the homecoming queen, Denise. My condolences to you, Purple Heart, whatever it takes. But this is a lucky man, that's for sure. Man, Coach, you hit the jackpot. You married a fine, beautiful lady. And because of that, you've had a great life.
Yep, that's right, Henry. That's been a big part of my life, and she's been a great wife, a great mother, a great grandmother, and we've been very blessed as a family.
Yeah. You know, basketball was a great love to you since you were a kid. And it's like the old saying, basketball has been very good to you. That's an understatement.
It is an understatement because without basketball, Henry, I probably would never have left that little town of 800 people in southern Illinois. Growing up, I was the youngest of 6, only one to graduate from high school, and I played my senior year with a broken foot because I was trying to get a scholarship, and I ended up with 2 scholarship offers.
Wow.
And so from that point on, basketball is what allowed me to get a college degree, allowed me to become a coach, and it's pretty much everything good that's happened to me has happened through the game of basketball.
You had a great mom who loved you, nurtured you, you and your brothers and sisters, and we got to start there because I'm sure, man, she motivated you, she inspired you. Do you mind going back to tell us that story?
Oh, sure. Yeah, my mother was absolutely the best, and I grew up in this small town in southern Illinois, and I was the youngest of 6. My parents divorced when I was 8. My dad at the time was working in Chicago, which is 200 miles north, and so at that time, Henry, in the 50s and 60s, as I was in school, I was the only kid. My brother and sister, we were the only family that had divorced parents. I mean, it was nobody got a divorce at that time. A lot of that changed in the 60s. But anyway, so I was basically raised by a single mom, and who worked for 50 cents an hour doing washing and ironing for people, and we had no running water. So we had to carry water in from the well, pour it in a galvanized tub, heat it on the stove, carry it to the back porch, pour it in the washing machine, and she would wash the clothes and then iron the clothes and earn 50 cents an hour. She got $32 a month child support, $5 for each kid, for each 6 kids, and $2 for utilities. So that's what we lived on. And what was amazing is I never heard her talk about not having enough money or not being able to pay the bills. But as you know, growing up without indoor plumbing, we couldn't even afford a window fan. One time my aunt came to visit from Washington, D.C., and she went up to the hardware store and bought an $8 window fan. My mom couldn't afford to buy a window fan, you know, so that was, but you know, at the time, you didn't realize you were that poor, because a lot of my next door buddy, who was my best friend, still is today, you know, he pretty much had the same life. So it's like we started mowing lawns when we were 10 years old, and so had money in my pocket, was able to buy my clothes for school and all that. But my mother was absolutely the greatest, and every time the church doors opened, we were there. And that's what kept us grounded. And the people at the Little Baptist Church, they were like family, and still are today. I spoke to one of them on the phone yesterday. So, you know, it's we've had a very blessed life, and it all goes back to my mother being a strong Christian woman, and the game of basketball. I mean, that's why I've had such a blessed life, because of all that.
Man. So when was it? Was it in your backyard, your buddy's backyard, the local gym? When did you start playing ball? Because you were awesome as a ball player.
Yeah, I started playing. In fact, I just looked at a picture yesterday. Me and my buddy, there's a double exposure picture when I was probably in the 7th grade, shooting jump shots out behind this, what we call the barn, which was a shed on a dirt court. And you know, back early, Henry, the balls were laced. You know, this is kind of before your time. But when I was in elementary school, we had one ball in the tub that still had laces on it, and I had one that wouldn't hold air, so we stuffed it with rags. So we shot with that ball when I was probably 3rd grade, which is when that's when you start playing basketball at school in Illinois, is the 3rd grade. So that's basically when it started. And I would shoot with brown jersey, cotton gloves, and in the wintertime, and they'd get wet, take them in, put them on the stove, get a dry pair, go shoot some more. I had 3 pair of those gloves. And when they'd get wet and cold, you go put them on the coal stove, get a dry pair, go out and shoot some more. They get wet, you go in and exchange them for a dry pair. So that's how it all started.
How'd you make your way to Manzano High School?
I'm sorry?
How'd you make your way to Manzano?
Well, that was interesting. I was teaching, when I got out of school, I was teaching elementary school at A. Montoya up in the mountains. I taught at A. Montoya in the morning. I taught at San Antonio in the afternoon, elementary PE. And I wanted to coach, so there was no coaching positions open in Albuquerque. I took a job in Tucson, Arizona, Sunnyside School District. I go down there in August, and I'm there for a week. I can't find a place to live without driving through the city for 45 minutes, and I'm not used to that, having lived in Albuquerque and been teaching in the East Mountains. So I go in and talk to the superintendent secretary. I can't find a place to live that's going to work. If I don't find a place by Friday, I'm going back to Albuquerque. So by Friday, I couldn't find a place to live in Tucson. I called Mike White, who's the personnel director here. He was in Durango at a administrators meeting. He said, "Yeah, I can get you a job." He called me back in about 30 minutes, said, "Yeah, I got you a job at Ackham Elementary." So I come back to Albuquerque. I'm teaching at Ackham Elementary. I go talk to Coach Martin at Manzano, and his C-team coach was John Herrera, who was a great guy, a great track coach. but he didn't really have a background in basketball. So he said, you can be Coach Herrera's assistant. So my first year, I was John Herrera's assistant C-team coach at Manzano. So I did that for a year. Then I became the sophomore coach. I did that for 3 years. And then I became the JV coach for 1 year. And then when Coach Martin left and went to Southeast Oklahoma, then I became the head coach. And at that point, I'd already accepted a job with my college coach at Wichita State as an assistant. But once the job opened up at Manzano, I was so close to those kids because I had coached all of them as sophomores on the C-team. So
now some big names that you coached. Some of those high school kids at Manzano, listen to the lineup.
Well, yeah, when I was Coach Martin's assistant, we had Mark Sayers to start with. Mark was a great player, smart player.
Former Lobo, great.
Yeah, went on to play on the WAC championship team, and I thought he was a big key for that team because he was also a straight-A student, smart player, struggled with asthma as a high school kid, but was still a great player. And
give me some other names on that list.
Okay, then after Mark Sayers, of course, we had Norm Casey, and Case started for us for 2 years, played on both state championship teams as a junior and a senior, and I had coached him as a sophomore. And what's interesting is I used to call him and take him to McCullum Elementary to work on post moves in the summertime, and I called him so many times. This is 50 years ago. I still remember his home phone number, 298-9840, when I used to call Case and say, let's go over to the playground and work on post moves. And he was all for it.
Casey, former Lobo, Norm Ellenberger, recruited him, needed him. Man, that was a good lineup.
Yes, Case was.
Who else?
Case was Royce? A very good player. Then and of course on that team there was a lot of good players. And we had so many dedicated kids at Manzano because we ran a year-round
program.
Coach,
give me the names.
Then Alan Zahn was probably the next big-time college player that I coached at Manzano, and Alan was a young kid. Alan he was 16 as a senior, turned 17 in January, and as a junior at Manzano, he was a great player. We go to the Farmington tournament when he's 16 years old. He breaks the tournament scoring record, scores 44 points in one game, and then I get him an invitation to the Superstar Camp in San Diego, where the top players in the country are invited. Alan goes to the Superstar Camp and makes the top 5 players in the camp and gets to the finals of the dunk contest. Gets to the final 2 of the dunk contest. So as a result of that exposure, every school in the country is recruiting Alan Zahn, and including Michigan State. And he visits Michigan State at the same time as Magic Johnson. Had he gone to Michigan State, he would have been on the national championship team with Magic. But he goes to Arkansas, and as a sophomore, and because he's 17 as a freshman in college, he turns 18 as a sophomore in college. As a sophomore in the Final Four, he starts and guards Larry Bird. And they end up losing that game, or otherwise they would have played in the finals against Michigan State. And Larry Bird plays against Magic in what's considered maybe the greatest college game ever, So anyway, so Alan was a great player, had a great career at Arkansas.
Look at there. Is that you with the greatest player in the history of the game?
That's me with Big Mike, yeah. And that's Mike playing the game that probably, there's no question he was the best.
And you were one of his scouts for the Hornets.
Yeah.
He depended on you.
Yeah.
You'd be walking the building and say, Jim, what's up? You, hey, Michael, hey, have a great day. You guys were tight.
We were, Henry. I started out scouting for the Golden State Warriors, and I worked for the Warriors as a scout for 3 years. And then Rod Higgins, who I recruited to Fresno, was Michael's teammate with the Bulls, and so they were very close. And when when Michael became part owner of, at that time, the Bobcats, new franchise started by Bob Johnson. They called and asked me to come with them to the Bobcats and be a scout. And then the Bobcats became the Hornets. And but I worked for Michael for 8 years, and it was a great career. There's Pancho, and Pancho Anaya was, he was maybe the biggest hero in the history of Manzano because of that steal at half court, take it down, lay it up at the buzzer. We go to overtime, win our first state championship.
Wow.
And then follow that up with a second state championship the next year, of which Pancho was a member. And
great player. Stats galore, the championship. But word has it, Pancho Anaya led the league in girlfriends.
Pancho had the ladies thought a lot of Pancho, I think, yeah. And especially after becoming the hero. And then Pancho went to Eastern New Mexico as a freshman, led them in assists.
Look at you. Is that the redhead?
There's Coach Martin and I at the state
Go
tournament.
back to the other photo. Is that who I thought it was?
Here, Big Bill Walton.
Big Bill.
Yeah, that's Denise and I at a game at UCLA that I was scouting. And I had met Bill the previous year and had a conversation with him about watching him play in the AAU tournament in Columbia, South Carolina. And then Denise loves Bill Walton as he's announcing games. So I told her, Bill's probably going to be announcing this game, and if he is, I'll introduce you to him. So we're walking up to the scorer's table where Bill is and his buddy Dave Patch, and Bill sees me and doesn't, recognizes me, probably doesn't remember my name, but says, Santa Fe, 10,000 Waves. I love 10,000 Waves. Henry, what was interesting when I first watched Bill Walton play, he was a senior in high school, and he had long red hair down past his shoulders. It's at the AAU National Tournament in Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm playing for the House of Carpets with Ron Nelson, Ron Becker, Mike Lucero, a bunch of former Lobos, and so we're at the national tournament, and Bill's on a team warming up with an all-black team from San Diego that was an all armed forces team, and I had no idea who he was. And my buddy Dan Hayes was there, and I asked Dan, I said, "Who is this kid?" He said, "Well, I think it must be the kid that's going to UCLA that I read about in Sports Illustrated." So we watch him warm up. The game starts. He starts. And on the other team is Nick Pino, who you remember was from Santa Fe.
St. Michael's.
Went to Kansas State, had a nice college career. Nick at that point was probably early 30s, I don't know, late 20s. But Nick's on the other team, 7-footer. They throw the ball into Nick. Nick turns to shoot a little jump hook, and Big Bill swats it up in the nickel seats. So they take the ball out of bounds, take it the other side, throw it back into Nick again. He shoots a left-hand jump hook. Bill swats that one up in the nickel seats. So at halftime, he had 13 blocks, and I'm walking around the concourse at University of South Carolina, and this is before cell phone time. All the scouts are on payphones, and I'm eavesdropping. They're all talking about this redheaded kid that's just blocking everything in sight. So when I tell Bill Walton I saw him play in that game, immediately he gets all animated, all excited. He said, "You saw me play that game? That's the game that got me on the national team." He said, "That's the game that got me recognized." And so he was very impressed by the fact that I saw him play that early in his career. So that's one reason that he remembered me. And
I love Bill Walton as a commentator. He wrote his own script. He's revolutionized the color commentator spot.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's a very smart guy. Very interesting, and has a lot of interest. Where he always brings on the thing at halftime, where he shows the area and gets into that. And I think that's what Denise enjoys, all of the information that he gives you during the game. And some of it doesn't have to do. A lot of it doesn't have to do with basketball.
Speaking about Denise, we just had her picture up there. I want everybody to see Denise. Look at her.
Yep.
Huh?
That's a picture.
Out of your league, Coach. How'd you do it?
That's a picture of Denise and I when I was coaching at the College of Southern Idaho after I'd gotten out of coaching for a while when my boys were growing up, Henry, and then had an opportunity to get back in and coached at the College of Southern Idaho, which is the winningest junior college in the nation. And
God bless you.
That was a great opportunity. And Denise used to have all the recruiting parties. As when I was assistant at Fresno and at Southern Idaho, anytime we'd have a recruit in, and then at Southern Idaho we had Monday night football, which we had the players over at our house every Monday night, and Denise would fix dinner for 15 players. And one time we had the board of directors at the college was there with the players. But she's a great cook and she enjoys cooking. So the players always thought a lot of Denise because of her ability to cook delicious food.
And what a sweet lady.
Yeah, she is a very sweet lady.
And let me go right there, because to both of you, you and I have a lot of fun together, and we make fun of each other and all that, but God is big in your life. You're a very, very obedient man, and, you know, you glorify God at every move you make. And I know that you and she are together in your worship. If you don't mind, can we go there?
Sure. Well, Henry, I have to admit, my wife is a very, very strong Christian, and you know, God is certainly number one in her life. But as growing up, as I mentioned earlier, you know, going to the little Baptist church with my mom, and every time the doors opened, we were there, and that was very important at that time in my life. And I, you know, as a player, I felt that that the more time I spent in church, the more things I did with people at church seemed like the better I played as an athlete and more success I had. But then we have two sons, and Denise is very much responsible for our two sons are both basically doing God's work. And our older son, Jason, is an associate pastor of a very large 2,000 member church in Southern Illinois. And our younger son, Mark, works for Lobo, a missionary group that has over 600 missionaries around the world. And he's a major donor fundraiser for them. So both our sons are very involved in the Lord's work.
See, they know that the greats are sitting there, and that's how I feel. Just like Mike Romero and Freddie, they know you. They know what you've done. We passed by your career at Fresno State like it didn't exist. Go there for a quick minute before we end our talk.
Well, Fresno State, Henry, before we went there, they were 6-20 the year before. We took 4 of the same starters, added a 6'5" center, and went 21-6 our first year. Won the conference, led the nation in defense. We were very defensive.
Who was the head coach there?
Boyd Grant, Tiny Grant, and a great coach. I learned a lot from Coach Grant. He was very strong disciplinarian, very great defensive coach. And the first year I'm at Fresno, I'm the main recruiter, and I recruit 7 kids. First year, 2 first-team All-City in Los Angeles and 2 first-team All-City in Chicago. And 4 years later, those guys are 27-2 going in against Patrick Ewing in Georgetown, who we lose to in the Sweet 16. And so that was, but we basically, our fourth game, first year, our fourth game at Fresno, we beat Cal Berkeley on our home court. And from that point on, Selland Arena was sold out. And the second year, if you wanted to sit in the bottom half of the arena, you had to pay $5,000 above the price of the ticket. I mean, it was just like the town went nuts because they'd never really had been big in basketball.
You had a lot to do with that.
Well, I recruited all the players that basically 7 of them went on to play in the NBA, Henry, with some of them had pretty long careers.
As we wind it up today, and you capsulize a great career, you know, what do you attribute all that to? Well,
I think blessings. I've been blessed. There's no question, Henry, that the good Lord has blessed me in many, many ways. But I think also I worked very hard. I put in a lot of long hours, and as the guys that played for me at Manzano will tell you how hard we worked, and it was a 12-month-a-year deal. And I was pretty organized. I would I would talk to a lot of coaches. I stole ideas borrowed ideas from a lot of coaches. We had a track program that I got from Jim Bush.
Did Royce ever play for you?
Royce Blackshear played 2 years for me and was a great player. And I should have mentioned him earlier.
He's watching. He watches all these shows.
Yeah.
Give me a memory of Royce Blackshear.
Well, Royce Blackshear was a tremendous athlete, a great kid, absolutely as good as anyone I ever coached. His dad had been a coach, but Royce would be at the top of the list of all-time great kids because he was a yes sir, no sir kid who worked very, very hard, never questioned anything we did, gave it 100%, and had 2 great years for us. So he was.
What a memory you have.
He was as good as they come, Henry. And when I was scouting, Royce went to games with me at Texas Tech several times the past few years with his grandson, and I think the world of him. Another guy on that team, Pat McDougal, who later scored.
Wow.
Pat McDougal scored 53 points in one game as a senior, and he was a kid who did not get to play as a 9th grader on the junior high team because he wasn't good enough. So he's another dedicated kid, 53. And from what I understand, that record was just broken last year. He said it in 1977. So it took over 40 years for that record to be broken.
Coach Thrash, time flies when you and I are having fun.
Yeah, it is, Henry. It's great. It's great visiting with you.
Oh, what a pleasure. Just between you and me, okay? When you saw Michael, did you say, Mike, let's go down to the floor, man, see what you have?
No, Henry, I'm not in Michael's league, and neither is anyone else.
The beautiful series they had on ESPN, The Last Dance.
Right.
For me, that emphatically made him, in my eyes, in my memory, in my heart, the best that ever played.
Yes, and there's no doubt about it in my mind. He is the best that ever played. I thought that before watching The Last Dance, just basically solidified that. And, and what's great in is, guys that are 20, 25 years old never really got to watch Michael. So I think it's great for the younger guys that got to watch that and realize how good he was. So, to talk about LeBron and Kobe and those guys who are also good players, but Michael was the best. And then, of course, big Wilt Chamberlain. And you gotta mention Wilt because Wilt still holds, I think, over 20 NBA records.
Gee.
And that was a different era. And that's the other thing with Michael. He played in an era when they didn't call all the little ticky-tack fouls. I mean, they beat each other up, as you saw in that series, The Last Dance. I mean, that was a physical time in the NBA.
What a pleasure. We got to say bye. I don't want to, but a special hello to Denise and the family. And really, I applaud you for the way you've lived your life. The priority list, man. Big. I wish I could give you a high five. The governor will throw me out of here if I do. But congratulations on a great career and a great life. And your greatest days are in front of you. You don't know that.
That would be nice, Henry, because I've had some great ones behind me. But anyway, buddy, thank you for having me on, Henry. You're doing a great job, and you've always done a great job for sports in Albuquerque, and I appreciate you very much.
Thank you, buddy. See you later.
Okay.
And we didn't get into the car collector that he is, too, because he's got a 57 Chevy. I was saving up my bucks so I can go buy it from him someday. Just in 30 seconds, how sharp is that 57 Chevy?
It's a 57 Chevy convertible, Henry, with only 44,000 original miles. So it's a beautiful car. It's black with a white top, red interior, 3-speed. It's a beautiful car, and I'm very fortunate to own it.
Wow, as they used to say, cherry condition.
Yes, It is.
Kurt?
44,000 original miles.
Woo. Have a great day. Thanks for making our day.
Thank you, Henry.
All right.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you, buddy.
See you later.
Okay.